Avatar: The Way of Water. So Avatar 2, or Avatar: The Way of Water, is the sequel to 2009's Avatar. 13 years it has been since we have seen the previous film. There are people going there are children going to see this who did not exist on the planet when Avatar 1 came out. It is a film that has the same level, I think, of wow factor as the previous. In fact, more so, because we've got 13 years of tech behind it. Jake Sully is is a Na'vi on Pandora, a magical, wonderful planet full of other creatures, Na'vi, giant flying creatures, all kinds of things. And if you haven't seen the first film, the humans from Earth have traveled across the universe to gather resources, and in this case of Avatar 2, make a new home of the planet Pandora. Of course, the life there, the Na'vi, the planet, the forest. Nobody wants them to do that. And Jake Sully and Natiri, his partner, and now his family, their four children, have to evade the oncoming forces and ultimately try to figure out a way to stop the planet that they've come to love from being taken over by the Sky People. The movie has a pretty stellar cast and a really stellar budget, as we were just talking about. It seems like it's going to take a lot of money to get over the hump here. The question is, can Avatar have the same draw as the first one? Is it going to have that wow factor where people run out and tell their friends, oh my God, you got to go see Avatar: The Way of Water. It's so good. Because if you were around for Avatar 1, odds are, if you're listening to the show, you probably remember that being a thing, man. Everybody went and talked about it. And now that Avatar 2's out, we're excited to talk about whether or not we think that's there. Andy, what did you think of Avatar 2 or Avatar: The Way of Water?
I thought it was okay. Like, there are some things that work. There is a lot that doesn't, in my opinion. The visuals are really stunning. The water stuff in The Way of Water is really pretty incredible. And I'm amazed at how they filmed it. It must have been miserable for their like cast and crew, like being in the water, underwater all the time, just wet and damp and never dry. But the effects, which have been the strong suit of this series, are top notch. They really are. But to me, that's kind of where the good stuff ends. The plot is it's a little generic and it's a little all over the place. I feel like the first act was about 45 minutes, feels like one movie. We don't get to The Way of Water, the water people, till about the second act, the second hour, and that feels like a whole new movie takes off. There's a little bit of rivalry between like the Jake's family and the Water family. There's several subplots that go on that don't really connect very well, and then we have this really long kind of third act. To me, the second act of this is the strongest and what I think is most interesting. That's where you get most of the water stuff. But like the plot's kind of all over the place. There's a few too many characters to keep up with. I don't know anyone's name. Everyone's blue. So it was fine. And I think, but some people are really having really positive reactions to this. And, I don't want to take away from anyone who's really enjoyed it.
I thought it was better than Andy did. I think Avatar: The Way of Water definitely has problems. I think like any movie does. And honestly, I think its biggest problem is it's too damn long. 3 hours 10 minutes is too long. Like Andy, and I know Andy and I watch a lot of movies on here. It's very easy for us to be film snobs and be like 90 minutes is the ideal movie length. But like honestly, dude, 3 hours is a series. Like there are limited series on HBO that are shorter than 3 hours 10 minutes. Like there's no reason in the age of streaming Avatar couldn't have evolved into a different format and been something we could have watched in a different, maybe more easily consumable capacity. But for 3 hours and 10 minutes, you are getting a lot to look at. Avatar features the same kind of blend of live action and really stunning, stellar CGI that the first Avatar film does, but with some new things in it. Namely, the water tech in this movie is insane. I could not believe how good the water looks in this movie. Not just like the stuff under the water and like the coral and the fish, but like just even general things like waves and ripples on the top, or when characters are riding some kind of creature or boat on water quickly. It looks so real, and like the illusion of what is real and what is fake really starts to get lost, I think, is you get sucked into the world of Pandora again. This is even better accentuated by the addition of a new character. There's a handful of new characters, so I should just kind of run down the list really quick. Returning from the first film, we have Jake Sully, played by Sam Worthington, and Neytiri, played by Zoe Saldaña. Both, I think, are a lot of fun in this movie. Andy, I think, thought Sam Worthington is like a wooden board, but we'll get to that in a second. We've got Sigourney Weaver returning, not in her role as Grace, the scientist in the previous film, but as Kiri, a new avatar born of Grace's previous avatar, mysteriously. And she has been adopted by Jake and Neytiri. They also have 3 children of their own. I've got IMDb up right now, and I can't quite recall. I don't know. I think they're Netayam, Loak, and Tuk is what their names are. So 4 kids, which is a lot. That's a lot to juggle. Like just on the top, you got your two parents, 4 kids, so it's a full house. We've got Stephen Lang returning as Quaritch, the villain from the first one. It's hard to believe he would be back, but
somehow Quaritch returned.
Somehow Quaritch returned. For what it's worth, I think it's better explained here than like Palpatine in
yes,
Rise of Skywalker, but it's fine. We have a couple new characters. Kate Winslet is in this film as Ronal, a queen of the like water tribe that the Sully family ends up traveling to in the film. Cliff Curtis is the king of that tribe, Tonawari. And another interesting one, just really quick, Edie Falco as the new kind of general of the American the American forces, I should say, the oncoming human forces, the colonizers. Yes, and Jermaine Clement as Dr. Garvin, a marine biologist. Did not expect one half of Flight of the Conchords to be in this movie, but he is. That's I'm going to say about everybody exciting. Of everybody there, I think. Oh my God! And I forgot Spider, of course. Jack Champion plays a character named Spider, who is a human who you'll see him in the ads if you've seen him. He hangs out with the Na'vi and he like paints blue lines on himself and he runs around out with an air mask on in Pandora because he can't breathe the air. And he sees himself as basically a Na'vi, but he is obviously a human. And the reason I introduce the cast and say all this is Spider is a great way to show to blend the live action and the CGI, because if you have a human running around in a completely CGI world, which looks really good, by the way, I couldn't believe how well they blended him in. It starts to fool your brain a little bit that this is not really CGI. You're seeing something that's like kind of tangible and a bit more real.
Yeah, and this is where I kind of start to have an issue with the effects. Is like I said, some of it looks amazing. A lot of the water stuff is really impressive, but a lot of it just looks like a video game or like it's completely animated. And the scenes with Spider in there, or it's almost like a human is in there just so you're reminded you're not in a video game, or which I don't think is. I mean, it's not a good thing if I think I'm watching an animated film all of a sudden you have to kind of shoehorn. I mean, he seems kind of a forced character just to remind us, like, oh, hey, there's people. We're on a set, or it's a blend of things.
Right. Well, I like I said, I saw that for sure, but you and I were both definitely watching to see what we could see, right? And I think one of the things Avatar for me did really well is it hypnotizes you, right? Like you start to kind of fall illusion, and before you know it, pulled into the world. I think my issue, really the biggest issue I have with the movie, is just the pacing. It's just too damn long. You can get sucked into the world of Avatar like just fine, but after an hour or two, you're going to be like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. And while you're in the lobby, you'll check your phone, and before you know it, like you're off the ride, and it doesn't do a very good job of keeping you on the whole time. I think few 3-hour films do, and I don't think Avatar is necessarily alone in this space. But I think there's maybe some potential to cut things down. With 4 children, four kid characters, you have a lot of room to run with story, and a few of them have their own kind of beats with their own problems and their own heroic arcs. And really, Jake and Neytiri get pushed to the background for a lot of the film. People have said it's a bit of a teen drama. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think maybe you could have trimmed that stuff down a little because it's a little long.
Yeah, Cameron has decided to make just really long extended sequences. Like, I keep saying that the movie really starts feels like it starts in the second act when they get to the water tribe. And that first act that's about 45 minutes, that could be like a 10-minute prologue. Like you could trim that whole thing down. And this is also like what Zach was saying. A lot of this would work in not necessarily the whole thing in a series, but you could make series out of different aspects of this story, and then you wouldn't have to maybe have a 3-hour movie, and you could explore things a little bit more. Because again, there's a ton of characters and there's a ton of plots going on at the same time.
I do think there's good performances in there. Much like praising Andy Serkis for mocap, like it is a little difficult, I think, sometimes to suss out quality work. But for what it's worth, like I genuinely did think Sam Worthington did a good job in this movie. Andy does not. It's fine. I thought Zoe Saldana did really well, even though I really wish Natiri had more time. I think she really gets pushed to the background.
She gets sidelined in her own
She's
movie.
one of my favorite characters. Yeah, it's really a shame. Like I hope if Avatar 3 is happening that she kind of gets more attention.
The way
and I really like go ahead.
Avatar 3, the way of putting Natiri back on screen.
Yeah. I really like the Quaritch character. I really didn't think I would. I thought you killed him in the first one. How are you gonna bring him back? And they actually do a really clever job of reincorporating him in a way that is genuinely fresh and similar to Terminator 2, which is another Cameron production, evolves the form of your previous villain with like new powers and new abilities, and gives them like more agency to be villainous while also like have additional layers of character. Like I think that's neat that Quaritch has a couple of weaknesses now. He's not just, but he's tougher because he's Avatar form, but he's vulnerable in a way because he's already been killed once, and I think he kind of understands that, and like that creates a unique bit of tension for your characters. Kate Winslet is a little hard to find in the movie. I've heard a lot of people say they just could not recognize who she was.
I had no idea who she was, and I kept trying to listen for her voice, and I could not find it.
It's funny because I feel like at least like Sam Worthington's avatar, Jake Sully, maybe it's because he is like a hybrid avatar that's addressed in this movie, like Na'vi who aren't real Na'vi, not like Na'vi. He was made by humans in the first one, so he like at least pretty well resembles himself. His eyes, like even his pores a little bit, like I can kind of, when I look at straight on at Jake Sully, I can kind of see Sam Worthington in there. But there's a lot of these characters you cannot, especially the kids. They look drastically different from like their from their actual actors and actresses. So
that's what's really funny.
Your mileage will vary.
That's what's really funny about Cameron saying like, oh, he didn't want to worry about the Stranger Things effect and wanted to film. That's part of the reason they filmed these two movies back to back, is so they could have the kids like grow up in real time.
Yeah,
but they're all CGI and they're blue. Like I'm not gonna if they age 10 years, you could just hide it. Like
yes. And any scene when like Sigourney Weaver's Kiri is like running around with the other kids, you can imagine them all on the mocap set with her being like, how do you do, fellow kids? Like trying to hang with like a bunch of 14-year-olds running around doing stuff. So but that being said, like I didn't mind her in there. I like Sigourney Weaver a lot, frankly. Like Sigourney Weaver shows up in a movie, I'm here for it. So what else? I don't really have much to say about the music. I think it's got okay, all right. It's got, again, Avatar: The Way of Water undeniably has
the Avatar theme. Right?
Undeniably has the wow factor, right? Visually, it is big, and people are paying extra to go see it in premium shows. People are going out of their way to see this in the biggest fashion possible, and I really think that's great. But I guess having seen the movie, Andy, where do you think this is going to land this year as far as top earners go? It's number 8 on the list now. Is it clear in Top Gun Maverick? Is it going to clear? Is it going to clear $1 billion at Jurassic World? I mean, what do you? I think it might take the top spot, but I'm not sure.
No, I don't think it's going to go overtake Top Gun Maverick.
I think it'll clear. Yeah,
I think it'll get a little bit over $1 billion. It was released in China. It was way shorter. They were hoping for 100 million out of China. They got about.
I had a lot of COVID problems in China.
Yeah,
that's not getting better. So
yeah, they're still dealing with a lot of COVID shutdowns in China. So a lot of theaters are closed, and a lot of people just don't want to go to theaters over there because of the COVID situation. So that really hurt it. But I think it'll be one of the top 5, but I don't think it's going to be 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think it might be. I think right now on the list, Jurassic World Dominion is number 2 at just over a billion, and then there's like Top Gun Maverick at like a billion point four or something. I don't know if it'll overtake that. I do think it'll clear a billion. I mean, it made 400 million its first weekend, and it's got the whole holiday to run. Again, there's not a lot of big CGI spectacle competition for it. Like I
Yeah,
think it'll get over, but I don't know what that means for 3. I know Cameron had said he wasn't sure if Avatar 4 and 5 is going to happen. He wants it to, but if not, he can wrap it up at 3. What do you? The way it's looking right now, I don't know if we get 4 and 5. I think they might
yeah.
do 2. I think they might do 3, and then
I think they'll probably do a third if this makes a bit close to a billion or a billion, which it probably will. They'll probably at least green light one more. But I don't
yeah,
think the appetite really is there because it's the rewatchability that really makes movies super successful. That's again Top Gun Maverick. That's going to be the poster child for that sort of thing. That movie came out in May. It was still in theaters up until like a month ago. They brought it back to theaters for December so you could watch it. Like, I mean, it's just kind of the gift that keeps on giving. And I don't know whether or not Avatar is going to have those kinds of legs. James Cameron is confident it will, but I'm skeptical.
Cameron said before we get to recommendations, because I do want to talk about it. Cameron had this great line in an interview, and he's been doing all these interviews leading up to this coming out, and he's been very, very brash. Some would say egotistical. He's an artist, and he's going to express himself, and that's fine. But he said he's got this thing like he claims Kubrick had, which is like he feels his interest is a lightning rod for the audience's interest. There's a sequence in here involving a whale that people had been complaining about or talking about online. And he said in an interview that it came up, and the studio apparently had told him, hey, maybe you should cut down that whale stuff. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that, because I believe if I want to see it, other people will want to see it. That is genuinely his core conceit here. Like, if Cameron likes it, if Cameron is sitting there giddy like a kid in a candy shop watching a sequence, he thinks other people will too. And that's it. That apparently is his North Star. That is his compass for deciding what is good in Avatar: The Way of Water.
Who's
and
more
what
in
is left in
touch
the cutting room floor.
with the people than a 70-year-old man?
I think that might be a question worth asking. Yes, because I think a lot of Avatar: The Way of Water works. I think it has potential to turn people off, like Andy, who I think otherwise would not mind it. I mean, I think Andy would be way softer on this movie. There's a tight 2 hours.
So
he'd be way softer on this movie.
So let me chime in on this whale plot. About halfway through
Really
the movie,
quick, yeah.
so we're about an hour and a half into the movie. This like A B C D E or F plot comes about involving a whale who becomes a character essentially, and it just goes on. It's like 25 minutes of this whale plot, and it's like the third or fourth most important thing that happens, and it's just like, what is this doing here? Again,
Yes.
series. Do this in a series. Do this in something else. Do this in a Christmas special.
The match. Right. Save the whales as Christmas special material. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there definitely been questions of theming. I've seen people say, how does this movie open with like, hey, colonialism is bad, and then manage to get to save the whales like within the same feature. I think Cameron has a lot of ideas here, and I think some of them overlap better than others. And I know Avatar 1 is a much tighter feature. Like, I think I personally, out of the 2, I think I like Avatar 1 a little more, but I've heard a lot of people say no, this one is much better. I guess I have to rewatch to find out. But what I do know is, like, I think there's a lot of good in Avatar: The Way of Water. I think he needs to dilute it down a little more for 3. And I think I should probably get to recommendations before I just spill the beans. Andy, any other thoughts or recommendations?
Well, just about plot real quick. You mentioned the first one. I think the plot in the first movie, it's not original at all, but it's more cohesive. It's more coherent. I feel like it moves from A to B to C just much more fluidly and better than this movie does.
Yeah. And with that, Andy, would you recommend Avatar: The Way of Water?
I think if you're a big fan of the first movie, like you were really excited you saw it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and you've been really looking forward to the sequel, I would say definitely see it in theaters. If you are anything but super excited about it, I would say save it for streaming. The visuals are really impressive and incredible, but it's not worth a 3-hour runtime, and it's a little bit all over the place. I get lost a little bit in the plot, in the characters who are all blue, and there's like 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. I don't know any of their names. I don't know any of the lore. Like I can't repeat anything. Like I was saying about this, how you do in Star Wars. You're like, oh yeah, the Jedi, the X-wings, the the Wookiees. Like people, you become familiar with the world. Somehow, I'm not familiar with this world at all.
Yeah,
save
right.
it for streaming if you're not super excited about it.
This is how the normies feel about Star Wars nerds. They're like, good God, y'all are talking about aliens and who knows what.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would recommend Avatar: The Way of Water. I think with it, like Andy said, it's not for everybody. It definitely isn't. And I can't even say if you love the first one, you're going to love this one. But I think it's an exciting feat to put something in cinemas that is so big and so bold and may not work for everybody. But like, I think what you're going to see here is going to be interesting. I think it's going to hold your attention in one way or another. And you may get to the end and find, you know what, that wasn't really worth it. But like, for me, it was like, I think Avatar: The Way of Water is not bad. I don't think it's, top 10 material per se, but I think we're going to have to get
yeah, it's bizarre because it's I've seen it pop up on a lot of top 10 lists.
I have too. I mean, like undeniably, the technology behind it is huge, and like there are genuinely sequences in here where I couldn't figure out if it was live action or not. Some of it is, some of it isn't, some of it's blended. And there's multiple bits here where I would be just blown away by something I saw on screen, and then 10 minutes later, something else would happen that I was like, oh my God, is that real? What am I looking at? And like I think that like mysticism can draw in like a certain kind of audience. It draws me in, at least, for better or worse. But with that, we should move on to our, oh my God, Andy, that's the last film we're reviewing in 2022.